Far above the Arctic Circle, closer to the North Pole than to most major cities on Earth, lies one of the world's most extreme places to live. A frozen archipelago surrounded by icy ocean, towering glaciers, and endless darkness during winter. This is Svalbard. A place where the sun disappears completely for months. Where polar bears outnumber people outside the settlements. And where daily life exists in conditions most humans never experience. To outsiders, Svalbard feels almost unreal. A remote Arctic frontier at the edge of the inhabited world. But for the people who live here, this is not an expedition. It is home. A place with routines, jobs, schools, shops, families, and a quiet rhythm of life shaped entirely by the Arctic environment. This is what it's really like living in Svalbard. The first thing that defines life here is isolation. Svalbard sits between mainland Norway and the North Pole. There are no roads connecting it to the outside world. Everything arrives by plane or ship. And during winter, conditions can become severe very quickly. Snowstorms, strong winds, extreme cold, darkness lasting around 4 months in parts of the archipelago. The environment is not simply difficult. It controls life completely. The main settlement, Longyearbyen, is one of the northernmost towns on Earth. Despite its remote location, it feels surprisingly modern. There are supermarkets, cafes, internet, schools, hotels, even a university research center. But beneath that modern appearance is a constant awareness that this is still the Arctic. People carry that awareness every day. One of the most unusual parts of life in Svalbard is the polar night. For months during winter, the sun never rises above the horizon. The sky remains dark even during midday. Only faint blue twilight appears briefly before darkness returns. At first, this sounds almost impossible to imagine. But residents adapt. Homes, cafes, and public spaces become filled with warm lighting. People focus heavily on creating comfort indoors. Daily routines become essential. Because without structure, the darkness can feel endless. Many residents say the polar night changes their sense of time completely. Days blend together. The outside world feels distant. Life becomes quieter, more reflective. And then comes the opposite extreme. During summer, the midnight sun arrives. The sun never fully sets. Daylight continues through the entire night. At 2 in the morning, the sky can still look like afternoon. This constant light affects sleep, mood, and routine. People stay awake later, spend more time outdoors, hike mountains at midnight. The Arctic summer feels energetic and almost surreal after the long darkness of winter. Nature dominates everything in Svalbard. Massive glaciers surround the settlements. Snow-covered mountains rise in every direction. The landscape feels silent, empty, untouched. Outside the towns, there are almost no trees. No forests. Just rock, snow, ice, and ocean. The environment feels ancient and incredibly powerful. Wildlife here is both beautiful and dangerous. Polar bears are a real presence. Not a symbol. Not a tourist image. A genuine risk. Outside settlement areas, many people carry rifles for protection. Because encounters with polar bears can happen unexpectedly. This creates a strange reality where nature is always respected. People understand they are living inside the animal's environment, not the other way around. Daily life in Svalbard revolves heavily around preparation. The weather changes quickly. Supplies can be delayed. Outdoor travel can become dangerous fast. People think ahead constantly. Extra clothing. Emergency gear. Food storage. Backup plans. Preparedness becomes second nature. Because in the Arctic, small mistakes can become serious very quickly. Despite the harsh environment, there is a strong sense of community. People rely on each other more than in many larger cities. Residents often describe life here as close-knit, friendly, supportive. Everyone understands the unusual conditions they're sharing together. And that creates connection. Newcomers are often surprised by how social life becomes during the dark winter months. People gather indoors, share meals, attend events, spend time together intentionally. Because isolation in the Arctic can feel intense without community. Svalbard's population is highly international. Researchers, scientists, tour guides, students, workers from different countries all live together here. Much of the local economy revolves around research and tourism. Climate science is especially important due to the Arctic location. Scientists from around the world study glaciers, wildlife, and environmental change here. This gives Svalbard a surprisingly global atmosphere despite its tiny population. Food and supplies in Svalbard are expensive. Almost everything must be imported. Fresh produce can cost significantly more than on the mainland. And choices may be limited depending on weather and deliveries. This makes daily life more practical. People waste less, plan more carefully, and appreciate simple comforts more deeply. A warm meal during a snowstorm feels different when you are surrounded by Arctic darkness. Housing is also unusual here. The ground remains permanently frozen beneath the surface. Buildings are constructed carefully to deal with permafrost conditions. Even basic infrastructure must adapt to the Arctic environment. Nothing about life here is entirely normal by global standards. And yet, for residents, these realities slowly become ordinary. Children grow up in one of the most unique environments on Earth. Schools operate normally. Families build routines. Kids play outside in snow-covered landscapes for much of the year. But they also grow up understanding Arctic safety from a young age. Weather awareness, wildlife awareness, cold survival. These are normal parts of childhood here. One of the most striking aspects of Svalbard is the silence. Not silence as an absence of sound, but a deep environmental stillness. No crowded highways. No massive cities. No endless urban noise. Just wind, snow, ocean, and long stretches of quiet. For some people, this feels peaceful. For others, overwhelming. Because the Arctic forces people into closer contact with themselves. There are fewer distractions here. Less escape from solitude. Mental health can become a challenge during long winters. Darkness affects mood. Isolation affects people differently. Residents often speak openly about the importance of routine, exercise, social connection, and purpose. Because Arctic living demands psychological adaptation as much as physical adaptation. Not everyone can handle it long term. Some people leave after one winter. Others stay for years, even decades. So why do people remain? Why choose to live this far north? The answers vary. Adventure, research, work, Silence. Nature. Some people come searching for something different from modern urban life. And Svalbard offers exactly that. A slower existence. A life shaped directly by nature rather than convenience. A place where people feel the reality of seasons, weather, and environment more intensely than almost anywhere else. Living in Svalbard changes perspective. You become more aware of light, temperature, isolation, nature, and time itself. Things many people barely notice elsewhere suddenly become central to daily life. The Arctic strips life down to essentials: warmth, shelter, community, purpose. This is Svalbard. A place where the sun disappears for months. Where nature always has the final word. And where people continue building lives in one of the harshest yet most fascinating environments on Earth. Not because it is easy, but because somewhere within the darkness, silence, and ice, they find meaning in the extreme.